How do you deal with afternoon crashes? I'm a uni student with classes early morning classes, 7 to 11, 12, 6 days a week. After a meal, I crash out completely and long nap from 1 to 4, and the day already feels gone. I want more time to study. The warm room may be a factor. Why do I feel so sleepy at noon? So I know from experience that when I had lots of sort of afternoon crashes, or just generally feeling perhaps just, brain fog and just feeling really tired, a lot of it originally I used to think, okay, it must be to do with how I'm sleeping, right? I must be tired. There must be something around that. But what I realized is that it was so much deeper than that, and it was more around the thing that I was consuming. And now this was more so having lots of carbs from my experience, right? Having lots of carbs. Now, at the time, I was bulking and I was having lots of pasta and rice. Now, these foods aren't inherently bad, but what I noticed is that when I would have these foods, I would just have lots of brain fog. I just really wouldn't have that energy. And effectively, I would have this afternoon crash. Now, what I've been doing over the last few years is having more of an animal based diet. So, this being effectively high protein, high fat, and low carbs. And so far, this has made me feel a lot better, or probably the best I felt physically in a very long time. And I think this is just simply because that a lot of the carbs I was having was more processed. But just generally speaking, it was, things that were sort of grains, and just those sort of things which really weren't that helpful. And I'm going to sort of say that, look, sometimes it's going to depend for certain people, right? Because obviously certain people are going to react to certain things differently. But what has really helped me is just going on the animal based diet where I'm just focused on having, meat, eggs, fruit, just sort of cheese, those sort of things. And that's been really, really useful. Now, something I will say as well is when it did come to the afternoon crashes, yeah, I think a lot of it was just okay. If I can just make sure that what I'm eating is obviously animal based, that's fine. Now, one of the things I do now as well is I only have 2 meals a day, and ideally speaking, that first meal isn't until about like 11:30 in the morning, right? So I sort of like almost fast a bit for the morning. This is usually quite useful because it means that I can just, I wake up, I go for a walk, and then I get on with the day, right? So I'm not having to, eat food immediately and immediately sort of feel like I'm already having to consume stuff. So I only have 2 meals a day, and that usually works out pretty well for me. Some people might sort of say, "Oh, well, do you get hungry?" Honestly speaking, if you're having enough protein, you won't get hungry that often. Now, obviously, you're more than that. You like you can eat what you want, but I think what I found is, look, if I am just not eating all the time and constantly, right? So, AKA, don't be snacking, right? Literally, just have a set amount of meals when you're going to eat. If you do want to have snacks, at least have them when you're having, your actual meal. And then focus on doing that, right? Try and do that somewhat consistently, over the next sort of 7, 14, 21 days. Now, I'm not saying you need to, change your sort of diet or whatever you're eating entirely. What I will say is, first of all, make sure that you're not snacking. Secondly, be conscious of the stuff you're eating. First of all, if it's processed food, that's a no-brainer as to why you're feeling, sort of with the afternoon crash and you're feeling like bloated or whatever it might be, right? Just don't have processed food. Simple as that, right? If you put rubbish stuff inside you, you're going to feel rubbish. It's pretty much as simple as that. The other thing I would say is look at how much carbs you're having, right? And also look at the ingredients in your food, right? A lot of the times, what I would do is I would just eat stuff without even really bothering to check the ingredients. A lot of the time, especially food like food on the shelves, it's it might as well be some sort of science experiment with the amount of ingredients that are put into whatever food that we're eating. So really be conscious of that, and yeah, just sort of be conscious of like of the carbs you're having as well. just because that was something for me which really caused a lot of brain fog and caused me to have a lot of those sort of afternoon crashes as well. But yeah, overall, what this video is more so about, like, it's not necessarily to say, right, you need to change everything, but I think it's more just start asking yourself some questions, start trying to be aware of the stuff you're eating, the ingredients in your food, how you feel after you eat certain foods. Those sort of things is really, really going to help. Because that way, once you know what the problem's more likely to be, and you can start maybe swapping foods out and trying to figure out what is actually best working for your body, that's going to help with your energy and it's going to allow you to do far better things without having to have that afternoon crash. So hopefully you found this video useful. Let me know your thoughts below and I'll chat soon.